Are you feeling heartbroken? Going through a divorce, a breakup, or the loss of someone you loved very deeply? It sucks. I've been through it a few times. And sometimes heartbreak can trigger an abandonment wound that lives deep inside of us, and it can be really painful, oftentimes making us feel left behind, ignored, overlooked, unloved, neglected, abandoned. All these heavy, intense, painful feelings. But what if this pain is not calling us to look for a solution outside of ourselves? What if this pain is an invitation for us to look within and to return home to ourselves? My name is Ed Hegan. I'm a former New York City firefighter and a mindfulness meditation and breathwork coach. And I teach people how to turn inward and find inner peace by understanding their emotions and learning how to regulate their nervous system. And I've been through heartbreak myself. It is a devastating feeling of loss. It can feel like the end of the world sometimes. And I've worked with people that have done amazing things as first responders. They've faced tremendous challenges and shown courage and bravery in the face of adversity. And working with people over the years, I've seen that some of the most challenging situations they've been in are facing themselves and the pain inside of themselves from heartbreak and loss and the devastation that happens when we can feel abandoned. And so I wanted to just talk a little bit about this core wound that lives inside of a lot of us. Because a lot of us as grown adults feel like, well, this might be a little silly. Why am I feeling so emotional? Why am I so devastated? Why am I so upset? Almost thinking that it's something that is reserved for children or teenagers in puppy love to experience heartbreak and abandonment. But it's not. This is a core wound that lives inside of all of us. And it formed from the time we were very young, when we were children, even babies. And if you think about the human being, we've been hardwired to survive. So when we were born into this world, we literally needed our mothers to hold us and nourish us. And when we felt that warmth, that skin-to-skin contact, you felt that heartbeat, we could hear that tender voice of loving, and we felt that affection and that connection that made us feel safe and nourished and helped us to thrive and survive and rest and grow. And this is an essential and important part of development as a human being. But at some point, mama put us down. Or maybe she didn't pick us up when we cried. Or maybe she wasn't around. Or maybe you were adopted. Or maybe you were abandoned or neglected or overlooked. Or maybe mom and dad were too busy to pay attention to you. Or maybe they were addicted and they were in a toxic relationship. Maybe there was violence. Maybe there was abuse and drug use, and there were a lot of unhealthy, toxic behaviors, which created a really unhealthy environment where you felt unsafe as a child. In that way, that core wound would have an effect on your attachment style and your ability to connect to other people, because sometimes we can learn, if we grow up in an unsafe environment, that love oftentimes feels like chaos, like abandonment, like neglect. And then whether we were securely attached in a healthy relationship, or whether we were not securely attached and we were in unhealthy dynamics as children, we can oftentimes grow up and we're literally like computers, where our brains and our nervous systems are programmed by the environment to keep us safe. So we use our five senses and we absorb the things we experience in our environment. What do we see, hear, taste, touch, smell? What are we picking up on? What feels safe and secure? What feels unsafe and dangerous? And our bodies and our brains and our nervous systems, they literally develop and become trained and hardwired based upon our feelings and need for safety, security, nourishment, and health. And so when we grow up in an environment where we can be overlooked or neglected as children, we oftentimes grow up and we have relationships where we can sometimes want to recreate that same dynamic because that's the dynamic that feels familiar to us. And so oftentimes people that grew up in chaotic environments only feel attached and connected to someone who represents and recreates that feeling of disconnection or abandonment. And so that's why sometimes people that grow up in toxic environments choose toxic partners, because it feels familiar to them and it reminds them of a time when their nervous system was developing. So it may not be healthy, but we at least have a better understanding and self-awareness of why sometimes we might choose partners that will recreate a feeling that feels familiar to us. And sometimes if we're with a partner that can treat us well, that can love us or is peaceful and grounded and they are regulated in a healthy way, that can almost feel boring to us if we are coming from a place we are used to more of a chaotic environment or an unhealthy and toxic dynamic. So there's a whole varying spectrum from those that are securely attached to those that are unsecurely attached, from those that grew up in healthy, loving, secure environments to those that grew up in environments that were toxic, unhealthy, and unsafe. And everybody is somewhere else in between. But having an awareness of the environment we grew up in, what we're attracted to, and sometimes the environments that we grew up in can help us to develop a greater awareness around who we are, how we're reacting to life, what our relationships are like, and what our connections are like. And so what we can do sometimes if we're suffering from feeling this abandonment wound, if we're in the throes of heartache right now, we can probably want to think our way out of it, or avoid thinking about it, or repress and suppress those feelings, or numb and distract those feelings with unhealthy habits. Maybe we want to drink or scroll, or we want to maybe feel physical affection, so we reach out to connect with someone else, or we want to feel the pleasure of stimulating ourselves, which can just distract us. But it can be anything we could be addicted to. It can be food, it could be work, it could be making money. Oftentimes people try to feel a sense of self-importance by becoming successful in the world and powerful in the world, because it helps them to counter the feelings of feeling helpless and powerless when they were children. And this can be a form of coping and self-soothing this abandonment wound. But we can't really do things outside of ourselves. We can't find a solution out there in another person. No matter how many people we date, how many times we connect physically or intimately, no matter how much money we make, how successful or powerful we become, we'll never really heal the wound because the wound exists within us. So it's important that when we recognize that we're trying to address this wound outside of ourselves, that we can stop and instead turn inward. And instead of doing a top-down approach by trying to think our way out of the problem, we can do a bottom-up approach by tapping into the power of connecting with our body through our breath and paying attention to what we're feeling and experiencing inside of us. Because oftentimes when we become dysregulated, we will have a sharp spike in adrenaline, cortisol, and stress hormones that can then come back down to baseline and then go below that, where we go into a restful state, which can sometimes be even below that into depression or dissociating from our feelings to protect us from the feelings of anxiety and the intensity of a lot of that stress. And then when we rest and go through a restful state, whether it's dissociating or numbing and distracting or sleeping if we can, we'll oftentimes then just go back up and have these peaks and valleys of stress and then kind of disconnection, dissociation, and numbing and distracting. And this spike of up and down is really unhealthy for our brains, our bodies, our nervous system, and in general to have a more smooth, it's okay to have stress in our lives, but we want to be able to manage and mitigate that stress in a healthy way throughout our day. And so if we look at this as an opportunity to take a different approach and stop looking outside of ourselves, we can instead turn inward and we can start to tap into the present moment. And if it feels good, practice along with me now. If it feels good for you, put your right hand on your heart and your left hand on your belly. And sometimes this gentle affection for ourselves can feel really nice. You can press your hands into your belly and into your chest. Close your eyes if it feels good. And we want to take a few deep breaths into the belly. And we take a deep breath into the belly using our diaphragm. And that can put us into a state of rest and digest. And what we'll do is draw the belly button away from the spine using the diaphragm. And so let's exhale all the air out of our lungs. Inhale slowly through the nose and fill your belly. Hold. 4, 3, 2, 1. Slowly release through the mouth. Inhale slowly through the nose and fill your belly. Hold. 4, 3, 2, 1. Exhale through the mouth. Inhale slowly through the nose, fill your belly. Hold. 4, 3, 2, 1. Slowly exhale through the mouth. And continue to breathe slowly into the belly. And just try to pay attention to what you're feeling. You may feel a tightness in your chest or your throat area. You may feel a nervousness or a butterflies in your belly or the sternum. So it's usually in the center line here. I sometimes can feel some things in the lower area too, in the groin area, in the lower belly, in the mid belly, in the chest, in the throat. And just start to pay attention to the feelings you have as you breathe slowly. And just pay attention and know that you're safe, that no feeling you have right now is going to hurt you. These are natural emotions that are triggered from a feeling of not feeling safe, from a feeling of feeling abandoned, feeling neglected, feeling unloved, feeling unworthy, feeling unwanted, ignored, or left behind. And simply feel what that feels like. Feel what it feels like. Feel where you feel it in your body. As you breathe in, you can breathe in loving kindness toward that part of you. And as you exhale, you can release any stress or tension. You can slowly breathe in acceptance. You can slowly exhale any stress or pain associated with that tension. As you continue to breathe slowly, you can remind yourself that you're the adult now. You can recognize the inner child within you that felt scared, that felt unsafe, that felt abandoned. See that child in your mind's eye. Remind him or her that I've got you now. I'm in charge. I'm the one that's going to take care of you. I know you feel unloved and overlooked and neglected, but you're not. You're safe. You're loved. You're wanted. You're worthy. I value you. I honor you. And I will care for you and love you. And you will feel safe and wanted and secure. I know this sounds kind of strange for the idea of speaking to a younger version of yourself. But the body does keep the score. As the Bessel van der Kolk book says, that we do store a lot of this trauma that we carry, a lot of this pain, a lot of these core wounds we do carry deep in our bodies. And when we recognize that these core wounds were designed to protect us, we can even say thank you. Thank you for showing me where I'm not free. Thank you for showing me where I'm carrying pain. Thank you for showing me where my wounds are, where I need to do the work to love myself more deeply. Thank you for showing me where I made the mistake of thinking that my love and validation came from outside of me, from other people, from success, from being strong and brave and valuable to other people, when the truth is that you are whole and complete as you are. You always have been, and you always will be. And you've got your own back now. You're going to love yourself in the ways that you weren't loved as a child. And this pain is real, but it doesn't define you. Because heartbreak are old wounds that are revealing themselves because they want to be seen, they want to be heard. And as grown men, when it resurfaces, it can make us feel weak, or almost as if we're not strong enough to be a man. But the truth is, from the time we were very young, we needed self-compassion as medicine. We need to become the version of ourselves that we needed when we were children. So if mom or dad weren't around to be there for you, this inner child is the one that feels abandoned. And by offering compassion to yourself, you get to rewrite this story. And we have to do that by grounding ourselves in the present. We have to ground ourselves here and now, because this is a wound from the past replaying itself. And so anchoring ourselves in the now reminds ourselves that we're safe, we're whole, and we're complete today, here and now. And so when we learn to integrate these lessons, when we learn to start healing these wounds, we realize that heartbreak is not the end, but it's a new way of us relating to ourselves and to other people with more authenticity and strength. But it can also help us develop deep compassion, because when we see other people that are struggling, feeling unloved and feeling unwanted or ignored or overlooked, we can recognize that wound inside of them also. And we can become, for them, what we needed someone to see in us. And allows us to connect more deeply with ourselves and with other people. Because when we see the truth of the wounds that all of us are carrying, we start to see ourselves in each other. And you remember that you're not broken, you're healing. And the love that you thought you lost, it exists inside of you. And so this abandonment wound can transform ourselves into empowerment when we face it with this presence and this intention. Because your worth is not defined by other people. You are whole and complete as you are. And you always have been. And so we have to keep reminding ourselves of that. And that the healing begins when we learn to stop abandoning ourselves. And it takes practice. So these heartbreak wounds, these abandonment wounds, they are heavy burdens, but they don't have to define us. And if we can breathe through feeling, embracing, having compassion for ourselves, we can stop tapping into this cycle of rejection and step into a state of resilience and inner strength that we've never experienced before. And this practice is not about erasing pain. It's about learning to sit with the pain, to honor it, and to learn the lessons that it's been teaching us. And what is that primary lesson? That primary lesson is that the love that we've been looking for has been inside of us the whole time. And so when we start to recognize the very things that we've been looking for outside of ourselves exist within us, it gives us more confidence and faith to turn inward and to do the work necessary to be the very thing that we're looking for ourselves. Now, you might be thinking like, well, what does that mean insofar as relationship and connection with other people? What it means is that when we stop looking outside of ourselves, when we stop looking for things and people and situations, experiences, careers, relationships, when we stop looking outside of ourselves to feel whole and complete, we start to give ourselves the very things that we think we're looking for outside of ourselves. And when we become whole and complete, what we do is we take back our power. We take back ownership of how we feel and what we need. And we can do the work necessary to become whole and complete on our own. And in that way, when we relate to others, instead of looking to other people to complete us, instead of looking for other people to make us happy, instead of looking to other people and blame them to be responsible for our feelings and our emotions, we take our power back and we take full ownership of how we feel and how we act. And we also take responsibility for our health and well-being. And we start to practice the self-care necessary to heal these wounds by facing them ourselves. And this is a powerfully, radically loving act towards ourselves. This is the real self-care and self-love that is the foundation of all of the healing for all of our core wounds. So when it comes down to it, it's just another form of practicing self-love. And this one happens to have the ability to heal one of our core abandonment wounds. And I hope that you recognize that giving yourself this gift is not only a gift that you give to yourself, but when we do heal from within, when we do give ourselves the love that we need, when we fill our own cup and put our oxygen mask on first, it allows us to show up in the lives of the people we love as the best version of ourselves. It allows us to share the love that we've given to ourselves with other people. And when we realize that we are the ones that create this love for ourselves, that it's an inside job, when we start to realize that the love we've been looking for outside of ourselves has been inside of us the whole time, we can tap into that inner sanctuary, create that healthy connection with ourselves, give ourselves the love that we need, and then we can share that with other people. So if you're going through a tough time, a heartbreak, hang in there. You have the tools and the skills inside of you. And if you want to reach out for more information or you need some guidance through the tough times, you can always reach out for a free discovery call at edwoodstock.com or click the link in the description below. And continue to become the best version of yourself. And take care of yourself so we can take care of each other.